Hello! In this video, I will be giving you an introduction to clinical research of medical devices. I'm going to explain what clinical research is and why it's so important. So stay tuned! Hi again! I'm Maria Nijekern. I have worked with medical device clinical development and clinical evaluation for 15 years now. I am so incredibly passionate about sharing my knowledge about clinical research. Having been a consultant, entrepreneur, and a founder of a medical device CRO, I have a great perspective on the challenges medical device manufacturers are facing when conducting clinical research. I am happy to say that I'm now teaching a course called Introduction to Clinical Investigations for Medical Devices and the ISO 14155 standard. You can find this on Medical Device HQ. This video covers some of the topics in this course. You can register for the course by clicking on the link in the video or going to Medical Device HQ website. But before we get started, make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel, and you can also do that by clicking on the notifications button, so you will always be the first to know when a new video is out. Let's go! Clinical trials using medical devices is called clinical investigations. The purpose of a clinical investigation is to answer important research questions. Clinical investigations must follow strict scientific standards, such as the ISO 14155 standard, which can protect patients and produce reliable scientific results. The clinical investigation is also one of the final steps of a long and often quite tedious research and development process. I just want to highlight that according to the medical device standard, the ISO 14155, the term clinical investigation is synonymous with the term clinical trial, as well as clinical study. So we can use these terms interchangeably and be comfortable that it's actually correct. So now that we know that a clinical trial, a clinical study, and a clinical investigation actually means the same thing, then let's look at the clinical investigation is carried out to assess what works and does not work as a treatment for humans. Let me repeat that again. A clinical investigation is carried out to assess what works and does not work as treatment for humans. In the definition of the ISO 14155 standard, a clinical investigation is defined as a systematic investigation involving one or more human subjects undertaken to assess the clinical performance, effectiveness, or safety of a medical device. Okay, now that we know the definition of a clinical investigation, let's look at what the purpose of a clinical investigation could be. It could be to establish and verify clinical safety, which means really that you want to understand how to prevent and reduce risks, errors that can harm and happen in patient or personnel, such as the doctor and nurses using the device. The cornerstone of all clinical research is to provide a continuous improvement of treatment methods based on the understanding and learning from errors and adverse events. Furthermore, the purpose of your clinical investigation could also be to establish and verify the performance of your device. This means that you check the ability or the capability of your device to perform as intended. You do this by looking at the technical, functional, or even diagnostic characteristic of the device. You need to verify that this enables you to achieve the intended purpose of the device and that this will lead to clinical benefits for the patients. Another point could be to establish and verify the clinical benefits. This is looking at the positive impact a device will have on the health of an individual or as a population. And this is expressed in terms of a meaningful and measurable patient-focused outcome. And finally, in the setting of a clinical investigation, side effects play a very special role. One of the goals of clinical investigations can be to gather additional information on already known side effects or to identify previously unknown side effects. This is very important. Let's summarize the overall purpose of a clinical investigation. It is to translate scientifically tested innovation into clinical practice to provide patients with a new or improved treatment. I want to make sure that you understand a couple of more important terms and don't mix them up. Clinical investigations should not be confused with the term clinical evaluation. It is easy to misuse or use these terms interchangeably, but it's very important to understand the difference and to speak about one thing or the other. Briefly, a clinical investigation is a new study using a medical device in patients to demonstrate the safety and performance of that medical device in human subjects. Whereas a clinical evaluation is the theoretical and scientific assessment and appraisal of existing data from many sources of clinical data. This means that human subjects are not directly involved in the clinical evaluation. I know it's easy to mix these two terms up, but please take the time to understand the difference. We are going to look now at the definitions of these two terms in more detail. The definition of a clinical evaluation according to European Medical Device Regulation, the MDR, is that a clinical evaluation is a systematic and planned process to continuously generate, collect, analyze, and assess clinical data pertaining to a device in order to verify the safety and performance of the device, including clinical benefits of the device when it's used as intended by the manufacturer. Please note that the definition of clinical evaluation according to the MDR, the ISO 13485 standard, and the MedDev guidance document on clinical evaluation are not identical, so please be mindful of which definition you use. Let's speak more now about clinical evaluation. This is, again, it's a theoretical assessment, and it should start during or actually even before a new product is being developed. This is before you even start thinking about the clinical investigation. Typically, a scientist or a clinician would search for literature relevant to the product and the indication. Keep in mind that the clinical evaluation is not a one-time project. It's a living process to assess and analyze all the clinical data of the device. Searching for the relevant literature normally takes a lot of time, and it can include hundreds of articles that needs to be reviewed and analyzed and appraised and summarized in a long report. This report is called the Clinical Evaluation Report, or also CER, and it can be closer to 100 pages. This report should then be updated during the lifetime of the product and included in your technical documentation. I hope it's clear now that a clinical evaluation process is much broader compared to a clinical investigation. The purpose of the clinical evaluation is to determine if the medical device achieves its intended purpose and if the medical device is safe, if the benefits outweigh the risks, and also to evaluate if the device is state-of-the-art and if there are any equivalent devices to compare the new product with. So if you have any questions or if you would like to leave a comment, please feel free to drop a line below. I would love to know your opinion. One more question. Are you on LinkedIn? If you are, you can make sure to connect with us on Medical Device HQ and expand your network. So we have reached the end of the video. Thank you for watching and see you some other time.